This is the brief on mastering beginner English. Learning a new language can kind of feel like drowning in a river of noise, right? But mastering that A1 beginner level is really just about surviving everyday situations through active daily practice. So let's start with how you take the language in. First, focus on active input. Listening is the doorway here, just like a baby listens for months before speaking. And reading is your quiet builder. Try watching short videos with English subtitles, but predict the topic before you even hit play. And when reading, just go for the gist. Look, if you understand absolutely nothing at first, it's not a failure. It's literally just data showing you English has 44 distinct sounds you need to get used to. Now, to push that language back out. Second, prioritize courage over perfection. Producing language is about getting your message across, not having flawless grammar. Make English a physical habit. Shadow audio clips, record voice memos, or write just 3 daily sentences in a tiny journal. Seriously, why are we so terrified of sounding silly? Native speakers stumble all the time. Mistakes are just evidence of your effort. Finally, treat vocabulary and grammar as practical tools, not punishments. You only really need about 500 to 800 high-frequency words. Vocabulary is your bricks. Learn them in context, like I drink coffee, not just the word coffee. And grammar is just the house's wooden frame. You don't stare at the frame to admire it, you just use it to comfortably live inside. Ultimately, fluency doesn't start with perfect memorization. It starts by bravely using basic words and simple patterns in your daily routine until they become second nature.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely strip away the fear of learning English and show you exactly how to build your language skills right from the ground up. Honestly, think of it like constructing a house, right? You don't start with the roof, you start with a solid foundation. So, if you've ever felt intimidated by the whole idea of learning a new language, you are in the exact right place. We're going to dive into the practical, everyday steps that you can take to become an A1 English speaker without all that usual stress.
Okay, here is our blueprint for today. We've organized this whole project into 5 manageable phases: the doorway of listening, the courage to speak, reading and writing every day, vocabulary and grammar tools, and finally, building your daily habit.
But before we actually start building, we really need to address the elephant in the room. Why does starting English feel so incredibly overwhelming? Seriously, if looking at a blank lot makes you feel completely paralyzed by just the sheer river of noise, the fast-talking speakers, the endless rules, I really want to reassure you that this feeling is completely normal. Words blend together, sounds are super unfamiliar, and it just feels like way too much. But that overwhelm, that is just a starting point. It's absolutely not a permanent state.
There's this great quote: "Before a baby speaks a single word, that baby has listened for months." I love this because it beautifully grounds our whole approach. It proves that you really shouldn't expect perfection on day one. Your ears actually need to be trained long before your mouth is ready to form the words. It takes patience, you know? You have to let the language just kind of wash over you first. And that is exactly where our construction begins.
Which brings us to section 1, the doorway of listening, entering the language.
So when you're practicing, try listening to a short, maybe 30 to 60 second audio clip multiple times, treating each pass like a brand new layer of a puzzle. Basically, don't try to understand everything at once. On the very first listen, just try to get the general topic, like is it about food, the weather? Then, on the second pass, try to catch specific words. On the third, really notice the rhythm and the pronunciation. And finally, on the fourth time around, try to actually repeat what you hear. Every single repetition reveals a new layer of understanding. You can absolutely turn passive hearing into active learning using some really simple strategies with short videos or AI apps. First off, turn on those English subtitles. Focus only on the heavy-hitting keywords and literally just let the small grammar words slide right past you. Another great trick is to predict what a video is about before you even hit play.
Keep these sessions quick, like 10 to 15 minutes a day. And please remember, when you listen and understand almost nothing, that is just data telling you what to practice next. It is not a failure.
All right, moving right along to section 2, the courage to speak, overcoming the fear.
Okay, so the really crucial point here is that building confidence actually starts by, well, talking to yourself. You can use this incredible exercise called shadowing. Basically, you play a short audio clip, pause it, and then repeat it out loud exactly as you heard it. Try doing this like 10 times per sentence. It is amazing because it completely removes all the social pressure and that fear of judgment, all while physically training your tongue and jaw to make these brand new English sounds.
Now, a super common A1 mistake is saying something like I happy, just totally dropping the verb. But you can so easily fix these broken sentences just by remembering to throw in the verb to be, like I am happy. Honestly, though, even if you do mess it up, remember that communication is the ultimate goal here, not perfection. If you say I happy, people are still going to understand exactly how you feel.
Let's jump into section 3, reading and writing every day, putting up the walls.
The amazing thing here is that you do not need to tackle some complicated novel. You are probably already surrounded by free, totally practical reading and writing materials every single day. Just switching your phone's interface over to English turns literally every single tap into a reading lesson. Social media captions, simple text messages, even just writing out your own grocery lists, these are all absolutely perfect for the A1 level. Just reading for the gist in these daily scenarios can so easily become an automatic routine for you.
90. That is the number of sentences you're going to produce in a single month if you just write 3 sentences about your day every night in a little journal. Literally, just 3 sentences. Like, I went to the store, I bought tomatoes, I cooked dinner. It takes maybe 2 minutes tops, but the cumulative effect over a whole month, it is massive.
And hey, when you do write those sentences, don't try to make it overly complex. Use a super straightforward 3-step method to keep things firmly under your control. First, plan what you want to say, who and what. Second, use a simple subject-verb-object structure. I eat breakfast. And third, read it back and just check your work. Check for your verb, a capital letter at the start, and a period at the end. I promise you, short and correct will always beat long and confused.
All right, section 4, vocabulary and grammar tools, raw materials and frames. Think of it kind of like this. Vocabulary provides the bricks, and grammar provides the actual frame of the house. If you reframe these kind of intimidating concepts this way, you quickly realize you really just need a small pile of maybe 500 to 800 high-frequency brick words and a few really simple frame tools to start building everyday sentences. You absolutely do not need to memorize the entire dictionary to communicate effectively.
So, to effectively gather up those bricks, you'll want to group words by theme, stuff like family, food, or places, and use a technique called spaced repetition. This means you review a word after 1 day, then 3 days, then a week. And listen to me on this. Forgetting words is totally 100% normal. By using spaced repetition apps, forgetting just becomes a normal part of the process. It's a trigger to review, definitely not a crisis that means you're failing.
Now, when it comes to grammar, you really need a massive shift in mindset. We need to move away from memorizing these abstract rules and endless conjugation tables, and instead move toward noticing patterns that are just naturally embedded in daily conversations. Grammar is quite literally just a tool that serves the conversation. You learn the structure because you actually needed to talk to someone, rather than, punishing yourself with endless rules on a chalkboard.
At the A1 level, these few basic concepts are literally the only grammar tools you need in your toolbox to successfully navigate your day. You've got the verb, to be, the present simple tense for your routines, basic articles, and some simple prepositions. That is the whole shebang. With just these few strong beams, you can fill out forms, order food, describe your morning routine, and actually start living in the English language. And finally, Section 5, Building Your Daily Habit, Finishing the Construction.
Look, you absolutely do not need marathon study sessions that are just going to burn you out. Attaching just a few minutes of these active skills to the daily habits you already have is really all it takes. 5 minutes of shadowing while you're getting ready in the morning, maybe 10 minutes of listening on your lunch break, and 2 minutes writing your 3 sentences right before bed. It's this consistency that actually builds the neural pathways required for automatic recognition. Throughout this entire process, you really have to remember one golden rule. Mistakes are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of effort. Seriously, native speakers make mistakes, they stumble, and they correct themselves all the time. Speaking imperfectly and making errors are just these necessary acts of bravery that prove you are actually out there communicating in the real world. By stacking those small victories day after day, whether that's finally decoding a text message, or remembering to use the verb to be, or just catching a single keyword in a fast-paced podcast, your house is going to grow stronger, sentence by sentence. Fluency is not some distant, impossible dream. It's actually just the inevitable result of these tiny, daily practices compounding over time. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought as you begin your construction. You don't have to build the whole house right now, but you can grab your very first brick today. What one new word will you claim as your own today? Pick it, write it down, use it in a sentence, and start building. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see the incredible English house you're going to build.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to completely flip the script on how you look at learning a new language. Look, if you've ever felt that familiar rush of panic, your heart just racing at the mere thought of ordering a coffee or introducing yourself in English, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack why fumbling your words, stumbling through sentences, and just totally abandoning this idea of perfection is actually the neurological secret to mastering a new language. We are going to look at why speaking mistakes aren't just okay, they are actually the core building blocks of your fluency.
So let's dive right into this and address that racing heart you feel when trying to speak. The fear of making mistakes is, without a doubt, the #1 barrier to speaking a new language. You know the feeling. You worry about using the wrong tense, or mispronouncing a word, or just sounding, kind of silly. But we need to completely reframe those errors. They are absolutely not embarrassing failures. They are the mandatory, undeniable effort required to learn. Listen, every single person who speaks a second language makes mistakes. It is literally a feature of the process, not a bug.
And here is a reality check that most learners completely forget. Even native speakers stumble all the time. Native speakers forget words, they use a ton of filler words, and they correct themselves mid-sentence all day long. So, what does this all mean? It proves that your ultimate goal must be communication, not perfection. If you get your message across, like if the barista hands you the exact tea and cheese sandwich you asked for, your English is working perfectly. It really doesn't matter how messy the grammar was on the way out of your mouth. Okay, but how do we actually build up the courage to get messy? Well, before facing the real world, you can actually build up some serious muscle memory in a totally safe zone. Solo practice is your absolute best friend here. By simply narrating your daily actions out loud to yourself, literally saying things like, "I am opening the fridge," or "I am pouring the milk," you start linking your thoughts directly to English output, and you do it with zero fear of judgment. You're training your brain to think and speak simultaneously,
and completely removing that heavy social pressure from the equation. Think about one of the most common A1 level errors out there, dropping the verb to be. It's incredibly common to hear learners say, "I happy," instead of "I am happy." But by being aware of this specific trap, you can start acting as your own coach during your solo practice. You literally just train yourself to double-check for that verb. It's a tiny, mechanical fix that instantly elevates how natural you sound. And the best part? That fix comes from simply recognizing the mistake rather than hiding from it.
Similarly, consider the classic forgotten third-person S, saying he go to work instead of he goes to work. This is another one of those mistakes that actively builds fluency once you confront it head-on. It's a mistake easily cured by repeatedly drilling short daily sentences. You honestly do not need a textbook for this. You just need to walk around your house saying, he goes, she goes, it goes, over and over until the grammar becomes second nature and the mistake just naturally irons itself out.
And let's look at how this builds when we consider the a versus an an mix-up. Try saying "a apple" out loud right now. It feels clunky in the mouth, right? Always using "an" before vowel sounds isn't just some arbitrary grammar rule your teacher made up to torture you. It actually exists to smooth out your sentences and make speaking physically easier. Correcting this mistake makes your English flow faster, physically proving that analyzing our errors is the absolute fastest track to fluency. So, a super crucial point when constructing these sentences is that you have to stop translating word order directly from your native language. Direct translation is a massive source of awkward mistakes because English syntax is likely very, very different from your mother tongue. Instead of translating word by word, the ultimate fix is to memorize whole phrases. Learn "how are you" as one single block of meaning rather than 3 separate isolated words. Memorizing these chunks helps you sound completely natural and dramatically cuts down on your hesitation time. Now, as you start speaking these phrases aloud, we need to talk about how you actually sound. Remember, your accent is a beautiful part of your unique story. It's part of your identity and absolutely does not need to be eliminated. But to ensure you're understood quickly and clearly, you do need to master 4 foundational pillars of pronunciation: vowel distinctions, consonant clusters, word stress, and sentence rhythm. Let's break down exactly what a couple of these look like. For example, let's look at vowel distinctions. English has roughly 20 different vowel sounds, which, let's be honest, can be an absolute minefield. Practicing confusing pairs like ship and sheep or bed and bad is vital. Making a mistake here can completely alter the meaning of your sentence. By actively practicing the physical mouth shapes required for these different vowels, you ensure you're communicating exactly what you intend to say, and you avoid some potentially very funny or very confusing misunderstandings. Furthermore, nailing word stress is arguably even more important than perfecting specific sounds. Emphasizing the first syllable in table, but the second syllable in banana is exactly what gives English its distinct melody. If you put the stress on the wrong syllable, even if your vowels are flawless, your vocabulary can become totally unrecognizable to a native speaker. So a quick pro tip: whenever you learn a new word, always learn where that heavy beat falls. Okay, so to tackle these foundations and embrace making mistakes safely, we've put together an action plan of 5 practical exercises. These are specifically designed to slay your speaking anxiety and build unstoppable verbal momentum. And the best part? You don't need a classroom for these. You can do them right from the comfort of your own home, making as many messy mistakes as you want along the way. Exercise 1 is shadowing. This is essentially an athletic workout for your mouth. You play a short audio clip, pause it, and then repeat the sentence out loud 10 times, mimicking the rhythm and intonation as closely as you possibly can. Shadowing actively trains your tongue, your lips, and your jaw to produce unfamiliar English sounds. It forces you to feel the rhythm of the language physically, entirely bypassing overthinking and going straight into muscle memory. Next up is mirror talk. Spending just 2 minutes a day watching your own mouth in the mirror as you describe your outfit or your plans for the day feels super weird at first, I know, but trust me, it drastically reduces the social pressure and that intense fear of being seen speaking. More importantly, it highlights exactly which words physically trip you up. When you actually see yourself making a mistake, it totally demystifies the process. It's just you practicing a physical skill.
Exercise 3 involves your smartphone. Open your voice recorder and record a 30-second voice memo about anything at all, your breakfast, the weather, whatever's on your mind. Listen back to notice what sounds clear and where you stumbled. Then, and this is absolutely key, delete it right after. You do not need to save these. The true value lies purely in the physical act of producing the language and self-correcting your errors in real time.
For exercise 4, we're getting a little dramatic. Act out common role-play scenarios, like ordering food at a restaurant or calling a doctor. Honestly, speak both roles if you have to. Make it incredibly fun and over-the-top silly. Why? Because neurologically, attaching strong emotions like laughter or exaggerated drama to your vocabulary permanently cements those words in your memory. A mistake made while you're laughing is a lesson you will quite literally never forget. Once you've practiced solo and you've finally made peace with your mistakes, it's time to navigate real-world context. On video calls, the best strategy is to speak slowly and use short sentences. Sending voice messages, keep them under 30 seconds and end politely. When chatting with AI assistants, just practice using complete, clear sentences. And in face-to-face chats, if you forget a word, don't freeze, just describe it. Use eye contact and describe the thing you used to open a door if you suddenly forget the word key. That right there is fluency in action. Also, asking someone to slow down on a call is not a failure, it's a sign of a smart, confident communicator. To make all of this stick, and to truly transform this mindset into daily action, you only need to remember one magic number: 5. Just 5 minutes of spoken English every single day. That's it. 5 minutes is small enough that you won't skip it, but large enough to compound over time and build serious, unstoppable momentum. Make those 5 minutes count. Speak while commuting, while taking a shower, or while cooking dinner. Make English a physical habit in your mouth, not just an intellectual exercise hidden away in your brain. Remember, every single broken, grammatically incorrect sentence you speak out loud is a small, vital act of bravery. Speak early, speak often, and above all, speak imperfectly. The words will eventually smooth out, for sure, but the confidence has to come first. Because if you embrace the messiness right now, one day, very, very soon, you're going to realize you just had an entire conversation in English without even thinking about it. And that brings us to this final, vital question to consider for your language journey. When will you choose the bravery of a mistake over the safety of silence? Get out there, open your mouth, and start making those glorious fluency-building mistakes today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explanator, and keep practicing. Okay, let's jump right into today's explainer. Look, if you're learning English at the A1 level, reading can honestly feel super daunting sometimes. You know that feeling, right? Staring at a page, clutching a dictionary, just totally exhausting yourself trying to translate every single word. Well, today, we're literally throwing that dictionary out the window. We're going to focus on a complete game changer, and that is how to read for gist. Getting the gist is this incredible skill that quietly builds everything else up. It helps you absorb sentence structures totally naturally, and it locks vocabulary right into your long-term memory. So let's dive in and fundamentally change the way you read.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the big picture. Second, real-world materials. Third, 5 core strategies. Fourth, handling unknown words. And fifth, building a daily habit. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Big Picture. Breaking the reading myth. So I have a quick question for you. Do you actually need to know every single word to read something? If you're sitting there thinking yes, honestly, you're definitely not alone. But that exact assumption, that's exactly what's slowing you down. We're setting up a massive paradigm shift here today. You absolutely, positively do not need to know every word. In fact, stopping at every unfamiliar word actually prevents you from doing any real reading. Enter our main goal for today, the gist. By definition, the gist is just the general meaning or the big picture of a text. And guys, this is your ultimate reading superpower. At the A1 level, grasping that gist is the true goal. It's not about perfect word-for-word translation. If you walk away understanding the main point of a message, guess what? You've successfully read it.
The really crucial thing here is adjusting our expectations. There's this massive gap between what we think reading is and what it actually should be when you're starting out. You might be putting pressure on yourself thinking you need to tackle complex novels or super dense newspaper editorials. But what A1 reading actually is, it's highly practical. We're talking survival texts. It's reading signs that say push or pull. It's understanding a text message that just says, "See you at 5." It's filling out a basic form, or just reading a menu at a cafe. These short, everyday texts are exactly what you should be conquering right now.
Section 2. Real-world materials. Let's talk about where to actually find your gist.
The modern reading landscape is just incredibly rich, varied, and best of all, it's mostly free. You're probably literally surrounded by great reading materials right this second. Think about your phone and your app interfaces. Just switching your phone's language to English turns totally simple tasks, like pressing submit or cancel, into functional reading practice. Social media captions and comments? Fantastic. They use informal, everyday English. And don't overlook children's picture books either. Their clear illustrations and repetitive patterns are amazing for building fluency. You can also hunt down short news articles specifically written for learners, and of course, turning on English subtitles on videos is a powerhouse way to practice reading in context while you listen.
300 to 500. Now, what does that mean? Well, that represents the vocabulary range of a really fantastic resource called Graded Readers. These are books written specifically with language learners in mind. At the A1 level, they use a tightly controlled, super approachable vocabulary of just 300 to 500 words. They stick to simple sentence structures and usually include helpful illustrations. They're basically designed from the ground up to help you build your fluency without you ever feeling overwhelmed by a bunch of rare, complicated words.
All right, Section 3. 5 core strategies. This is your actionable reading toolkit.
So here is our initial attack plan. Strategy 1 is super simple. Read for the gist first. Do not stop when you hit an unknown word. Just read the entire short text all the way through to get the big picture before you ever dive into the details. Then strategy 2 is all about using context clues. Let's say you're reading the sentence, "She put the milk in the fridge." Now, if you don't know the word fridge, just think about the context for a second. Milk is cold, right? You store cold things in a specific place in your kitchen, so a fridge must be that place. Boom, you just deduced the meaning and learned a brand new word, and you didn't even have to touch a dictionary.
Let's move on to strategy 3, which shows you how this all builds up through repetition. Because repetition absolutely builds fluency. On your first read through a text, you do step 1. Just get the general meaning, the gist, simple. Then, on your second read, you move to step 2. Underline those new words and actually go ahead and look them up. During your third read, step 3, you'll naturally start to notice the grammar patterns without even opening a grammar textbook. And finally, on the fourth read, step 4, read it aloud to practice your pronunciation.
And hey, speaking of reading aloud, that brings us directly to strategy 4. Silent reading is great and all, but reading aloud creates this amazing thing we call triple encoding. Think about it. You see the word, you say the word, and you hear the word all at the same time. This actively connects your eyes, your mouth, and your ears, which just dramatically improves your brain's ability to lock that vocabulary right into your long-term memory.
Moving to Section 4, Handling Unknown Words. Let's navigate the unknown together.
Okay, if there is only one single thing you take away from this entire explainer, make it this rule right here. If a word does not block your understanding of the main idea, just skip it and keep reading. I want to explicitly give you permission to do this right now. Encountering words you don't know is totally expected. Honestly, it's healthy. It means you're pushing yourself and learning. Please don't let one random unfamiliar adjective stop you from understanding a perfectly good sentence. But look, obviously you do need to learn new words eventually. So here are the golden rules for when you should actually go to the trouble of looking them up. First, look up a word if it keeps appearing multiple times. Repeated exposure usually means it's pretty important. Second, when you do look it up, write that new word down in a little notebook or a flashcard app, and always include a simple example sentence so you actually have some context. And finally, do not try to memorize more than 5 to 7 new words per reading session. Seriously, focus on quality over quantity, otherwise you're going to burn yourself out for sure. And what kind of words should you be focusing on? Well, you should zero in on high-frequency vocabulary drawn straight from daily life. We're all human, so we mostly talk about our families, food, the places we're going, and our daily actions, like eating, working, and studying. Mastering these basics is going to unlock a massive amount of real-world text for you. You really don't need to be worrying about obscure academic words right now. Finally, Section 5. Building a daily habit. It's time to start stacking those small victories.
You know, we have such a huge advantage these days. We live in the digital age, and screens are literally everywhere. If you really need a definition, you can just tap a word on your screen and get it instantly. You can bump up the font size so you're actually comfortable while you read. You can highlight and save sentences directly to your device with one tap. And with a smartphone or an e-reader, you can carry hundreds of those graded readers we talked about right in your pocket. Reading has never, ever been more accessible. Use these digital tools to turn your passive, everyday screen time into highly intentional English reading.
10. That brings us to strategy 5, your daily reading commitment. It does not need to be some grueling hour-long study session. It literally only needs to be 10 minutes. The secret sauce here is to attach this short 10-minute session to a daily habit you already have. So, read for 10 minutes while you drink your morning coffee, or during your lunch break, or maybe right before you go to sleep. Just make it automatic.
Let's wrap this up with a really powerful thought. Reading is a conversation between you and a text. Now, at the A1 level, sure, that conversation might be a bit short and simple right now, but it is incredibly real. Every single street sign you successfully decode, every quick text message you figure out, and every short story you actually finish, that's a small victory. If you stack those small victories day after day, just 10 minutes at a time, fluency isn't just going to be a distant dream anymore. It's going to be inevitable. The whole world around you is secretly a classroom, and maybe you've just been ignoring it. So step outside today. What text are you going to start a conversation with? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining us.
Today, we're tackling something that honestly causes way too much anxiety, and it really shouldn't. A1 English writing. Specifically, this is the student's guide to 5 strategies that are going to completely transform how you approach putting words on a page. Right off the bat, let's just clear the air. Mastering English writing at the A1 level is absolutely not about stressing over long academic essays or trying to write perfect poetry. Not at all. It's entirely about building empowering, simple, everyday habits. It's about functional communication in the real world. By the time we wrap up today, I guarantee you're going to see writing not as a chore, but as a super accessible tool that you actually want to use.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll talk about making your English permanent. Second, we'll dive right into those 5 core writing strategies. Third, mastering everyday writing tasks. Fourth, we'll look at tech tools versus good old-fashioned handwriting. And finally, we'll explore the idea that writing is visible thinking. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Making your English permanent.
So, to really master A1 writing, we first have to totally shift how we think about the words we speak versus the words we write. Think about this quote for a second. Writing is the skill that makes your English visible and permanent. You know, when you speak, your words just kind of vanish into thin air, right? They're temporary. But when you write them down, they lock into place. They stay there. And for a language learner, that is incredibly empowering. Why? Because you can actually look at them. You can correct them. You can deliberately tweak them and then share them when you're ready. Writing actually gives you the gift of time. You don't have to think on your feet the way you do in a fast-paced conversation. Now, you might be wondering, what does A1 writing actually look like in the real world? Well, it's highly practical. And let's be honest, it mostly happens on our screens. We're talking about short, informal text messages, like just shooting someone a quick, "Hey, I'm running late," or maybe simple 3 to 5 sentence emails to book a table at a restaurant. It's filling out online forms or maybe typing up a quick social media caption for a photo. The takeaway here? We are not writing novels. It's just about functioning effectively in your day-to-day life, and that is totally within your reach.
All right, moving on to Section 2, 5 core writing strategies.
Here is the master plan, laid out in 5 essential steps. 1. Plan before you write. 2. Use simple structures. 3. Write, then check. 4. Use models. And 5. Write every day. We're going to break down every single one of these right now so you know exactly how to use them starting today.
Okay, strategy number 1. Plan before you write. I know, you're probably thinking, it's just 3 sentences. Why on earth do I need a plan? But listen, even for a super short text message, taking literally a 5-second pause to plan prevents a world of confusion later. Just ask yourself 2 simple questions. What do I want to say, and who am I writing to? Knowing if you're texting your best friend versus emailing your strict boss instantly helps you choose the right words. It basically guarantees you won't accidentally send a heart emoji to your manager, right? 5 seconds of planning sets you up for total success.
Strategy number 2 is your magic formula for sentence building at the A1 level. Subject plus verb plus object. Think about sentences like, "I eat breakfast," or "She works in a hospital." Please do not try to write long, twisting, complicated sentences at this stage. The golden rule here: short and correct always beats long and confused. Keep it simple, stick to that formula, and you'll get your point across perfectly.
Next up, strategy 3. Write, then check. This is really about building the habit of self-editing, which is arguably one of the absolute best skills any language learner can develop. After you write those simple sentences, resist the urge to just hit send right away. Take a breath, reread them. Walk through a quick mental checklist. First, find the verb. Every sentence needs one, right? Next, check the capital letters at the start. Make sure you've got periods at the end. And do a quick scan of your basic spelling. Seriously,
Catching your own typos is how your brain truly internalizes the rules. Strategy 4 is an absolute lifesaver. Use models. Don't reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from zero every single time you write a thank you note or an email. Leverage what's already out there. Before you write, look at a sample. Notice the structure. How do they say hello? How do they sign off? Then basically steal that exact same structure and write your own version. Just swap in your own specific details and new content. It's incredibly efficient, and it guarantees you're using formats that actually sound natural.
And that brings us to our final core strategy, number 5. Keep a tiny journal. I want you to write just 3 sentences about your day every single night before bed. It could literally be, today I went to the market. I bought tomatoes. I cooked dinner. That's it. Just 3 sentences. It's this tiny daily commitment that feels so small it's easy to stick to. But trust me on this, it yields massive results over time.
Let's actually do the math on that tiny journal for a second. Think about the number 90. If you write just 3 sentences a day, every single day, well, in 1 month, you're going to have written 90 sentences. 90. Just think about how much practice that really is. Think about how much your spelling, your grammar, and especially your confidence are going to improve. That is undeniable, measurable progress, and it all comes from just 2 minutes of work before you go to sleep. Section 3. Mastering everyday writing tasks. Let's talk nuts and bolts, the absolute fundamentals of A1 mechanics. First rule, always capitalize the first letter of a sentence, and always capitalize the word I. Make sure you're ending your thoughts with a period, a question mark, or an exclamation point, and use commas when you're making simple lists like a grocery list. Another huge tip, make it a priority to learn the exact spelling of the 200 most common English words, simply because they pop up in almost everything you'll ever write. And lastly, keep a close eye out for those tricky silent letters. Words like night with a silent K or right with a silent W. They're everywhere, so you've got to watch out for them.
Moving right along to section 4, tech tools and handwriting.
So let's compare these two directly. On the one hand, we've got digital writing. We all have spell check and AI on our phones and laptops now. The trick is to use those as learning tools, not as crutches. Try to write the sentence perfectly on your own first, and then let the AI catch what you missed so you actually learn from it. But on the other hand, we have handwriting. And surprisingly, writing by hand isn't just some old-school tradition, it's practically a neurological hack. The physical, tactile act of forming letters deeply engages your brain, improves your memory, and reinforces new vocabulary way better than typing. So my advice? Use your digital tools for those quick text messages for sure, but keep a paper notebook and a pen on your nightstand for that daily 3-sentence journal.
And finally, Section 5. Writing is visible thinking.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to slow down for a second and just consider this really beautiful idea. Every sentence is a small act of construction. I absolutely love that phrasing. When you sit down to write, you are actively choosing the words, you're arranging them, and you are literally creating meaning from scratch. At the A1 level, sure, your sentences might be short, they might be very simple, but they are incredibly meaningful because they belong exclusively to you. They carry your specific thoughts, your unique needs, and your distinct voice out into the world. It's a pretty powerful act of creation when you think about it. So I want to leave you with one final, provocative question to think about. Will you start your tiny 3-sentence journal today? I'm challenging you to take immediate action on those 5 strategies we just went over. Grab a pen, find a notebook, and tonight, just write down 3 simple things that happened today. Write often. Write bravely. Allow yourself to make a bunch of mistakes and then learn from them. If you stick with this, I promise you the words will absolutely grow with you. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer today. Happy writing, everyone.
Welcome to the explainer. You know that feeling when you're a struggling student staring at a massive foreign language dictionary, just completely overwhelmed by the sheer thousands of words staring back at you? Well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're looking at the ultimate architectural plan for language learning. We're talking about the metaphorical blueprint to fluency. And the absolute best news? Laying this foundation is incredibly attainable. You do not need a sprawling vocabulary to start communicating. You just need a solid, targeted base. Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. We're going to breeze through 5 parts today: the engine of language, your first 500 words, how to actually learn effectively, moving from passive to active, and finally, the tools for building your vocabulary. Let's kick things off with part 1. The engine of language, which is, of course, vocabulary. Here is a fundamental truth about language learning. You can totally survive with clunky, imperfect grammar, but you literally cannot communicate without words. But here's the thing, as a student just starting out, you don't need thousands of words, no way. You really only need a highly targeted block of about 500 to 800 high-frequency words to build a rock-solid foundation. Vocabulary is the true engine that drives all communication forward. You just need the right words, learned deeply, and reviewed regularly. Moving into part 2, let's take a look at those first 500 words, our raw materials. Now, what's really interesting to see here is just how refreshingly mundane and accessible these foundational words actually are. I mean, we're not dealing with complex philosophy. We're looking at personal information, family members, food, and your home. For food, we're talking about basic bricks like bread and rice. Over in the home category, we've got door and window. And daily routines, those include simple verbs like wake up or ate. These are the everyday objects and actions that literally make up 90% of our daily lives. But, and this is an absolutely crucial point, these foundational words should never be learned as dry, isolated dictionary entries. Honestly, if you just stare at a list of 500 words, your brain is going to reject them. No student needs to know how to say the boy is under the table on day 1. Instead, you need to learn them as living parts of dialogues. Imagine a simple conversation at a local cafe. That natural interaction naturally introduces words like order, menu, coffee, sugar, and delicious. Or, a quick chat about the weather gives you sunny, rainy, and umbrella. By encountering these words in short, realistic daily conversations, the vocabulary just sinks into your brain so much more naturally. All right, part 3, how to learn effectively. This is our actual blueprint. So method 1 is all about context. Memorizing an isolated word like coffee by itself is honestly highly inefficient. But learning the word inside a contextual sentence, like I drink coffee every morning, that gives you the vocabulary, the grammar structure, and the practical usage all at exactly the same time. It's a massive upgrade in efficiency compared to just memorizing disconnected lists. Let's quickly group methods 2, 3, and 5 together, because they all tap into how our brains naturally organize information. Method 2 is the 24-hour rule. Basically, use a new word in a spoken sentence or text message within a day of learning it, and that helps move it from short-term to long-term memory. Method 3 is making personal connections. Link the word kitchen to the smell of your mom's cooking, or tired to how you feel after a long shift at work. Personal connections make words sticky. And method 5 is thematic grouping. Study food words together or transport words together to create this kind of mental web of related vocabulary. And this brilliantly illustrates method 4, spaced repetition. Think of it like a schedule. If you review a word immediately, then wait 1 day, then 3 days, then a week, then 2 weeks, you're catching your brain right at the exact moment it's about to forget. Spaced repetition apps automate this exact mathematical schedule. efficiently and permanently transferring these words into your long-term memory over time. It's basically a superpower for vocabulary building. Let's shift to part 4, going from passive to active, which is really our quality control phase. This is where we need to address the reality of being a language student. There is a totally natural gap between your passive vocabulary, the words you recognize when reading or listening, and your active vocabulary, which are the words you can actually produce yourself. At the A1 level, that passive side is naturally going to be much larger, and I want to assure you that is perfectly normal. The overarching goal of your language learning journey is to just gradually push those passive words over to the active side through continuous speaking and writing practice. But what happens when you try to use a word and your mind just completely goes blank? I found it so reassuring to learn that forgetting is not a flaw or a failure. It's actually a biological part of the building process. When you forget a word, just follow the forgetting protocol. 1, look it up. 2, say it aloud 3 times. 3, write it in a quick sentence. And 4, move on. The next time you see it, it will be easier to remember. Repetition is literally what builds the structure. Finally, we've reached part 5, the tools you need for building this vocabulary. So here is your on-site toolkit. Flashcard apps are amazing because they leverage those spaced repetition algorithms we talked about earlier. Physical vocabulary notebooks are great for just writing down words, simple definitions, and example sentences. You can also physically label your environment. For example, putting a literal sticky note labeled door on your actual bedroom door so you see it every single day. It's an incredible hack for students. Or pick a word of the day and force yourself to use it in 3 different sentences. And for visual learners, picture dictionaries are absolutely excellent at this A1 stage. I want to bring this entire explainer to a close with a really powerful quote from our source text. Words are the bricks of language. Grammar is the mortar that holds them together, but without bricks, you cannot build anything. True fluency doesn't come from memorizing complicated grammar tables first. It comes from collecting and stacking these vocabulary bricks, one by one. You handle them, you use them, you stack them into sentences, and over time, you step back and marvel at the structure you've built. That right there is exactly how a student's fluency begins. Not with thousands of words, but with a foundational 500 learned really well. So I'm going to leave you with this final question. What is the first brick you will collect today? Pick one word. Write it down, use it in the sentence, start building your new language right now. Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you are a focused language learner, you've probably hit a wall at some point when it comes to grammar. It can be incredibly frustrating, right? But today, we're going to completely reframe your relationship with language learning. We're actually going to look at how grammar is the absolute secret to building solid conversation skills, not just some boring rule book to be feared. Here is our calming blueprint for today's build. We'll kick things off by seeing grammar as a tool, not a punishment. Then, we'll open up the essential A1 toolkit. See exactly how grammar serves the conversation. Run through 5 core principles for learning, fix some super common mistakes, and finally, step back and look at the finished conversational house. Section 1, a tool, not a punishment. I think we really need to acknowledge the universal trauma of traditional grammar classes. You know the drill. Endless verb tables, confusing rules, a page covered in red pen marks. It's awful. But what if we pivot our mindset? Instead of a punishment, think of grammar simply as a set of practical tools, like a hammer, a saw, or a level. Just like a carpenter needs those specific tools to build a shelf, you just need a small set of grammar structures to build sentences. Really, it is that simple. Section 2, the essential A1 toolkit. When you're at the A1 beginner level, you absolutely do not need to be lugging around a heavy textbook. You just need a few lightweight, immediately useful tools to lay down your conversational beams. First up is the verb to be. Basic things like I am or you are. Then we grab the present simple tense for routines and facts, like I wake up at 7. And third, the present continuous for what's happening right now, like I am studying. Totally manageable, right? Continuing with those essential tools, we've got articles, so knowing when to drop in a, an, or the. Then plural nouns, both your regular ones and the quirky irregular ones. And possessive adjectives, my, your, his. And please, don't look at these as abstract academic rules. They're literally just the basic materials you need to construct meaning. To round out this little toolkit, you'll want basic prepositions of place and time, in, on, at. Add in there is, there are, the ability to say can or cannot, and your fundamental question words like who, what, and where. Honestly, these specific structures are all you need to start supporting real, actual conversations. Section 3, Grammar serves the conversation. So the crucial point here is how these tools are actually used. Grammar is absorbed through dialogue, not before it. Think about the painful old way of learning, staring at an abstract chart of the verb to be in total isolation. Yeah, scratch that. The modern, effective way is starting with a daily conversation to naturally absorb patterns. The grammar serves the conversation, not the other way around. Let me just act this out for you real quick. Imagine hearing, "Hello, my name is Sarah." "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I am Allie. Where are you from?" When you hear that, you naturally absorb structures like I am and where are you from because they are completely embedded in actual meaning. You learn them because you actually need them to participate. Section 4. 5 Principles for Learning. So how do we safely and efficiently build this fluency? Well, we have 5 principles that form a complete, holistic approach to mastering those A1 tools without completely burning yourself out. We're talking patterns, sentences, mistakes, focus, and communication. Let's walk through these. Number 1, learn patterns, not rules. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. Number 2, practice in sentences, not in isolation. Context gives grammar its life. Number 3, make mistakes and correct them. Embrace the mess. Number 4, focus on one structure at a time. And number 5, use grammar in communication, because the ultimate test is actually saying something meaningful to another human being. Section 5, Fixing Common Grammar Mistakes. And this brilliantly illustrates how self-correction builds a way deeper understanding than just passively reading correct examples. Take a super common beginner mistake. She happy. The quick fix? She is happy. Missing the verb to be happens all the time, but fixing it is just a quick adjustment to your framing. Always, always ask yourself, where is the verb in this sentence? Here's another classic, forgetting the third person S. Like saying, he go to school, instead of the correct, he goes to school. Honestly, just noticing this third person pattern and doing a daily drill of he, she, it, plus the verb with an S is so much easier than memorizing strict textbook rules. And what about tripping over articles and prepositions? Instead of a orange, we say an orange because of that vowel sound. Instead of I am in Monday, it's I am free on Monday. You can empower yourself to fix these common slips by treating prepositions as fixed conversational phrases. Just learn on Monday, in the morning, and at night as set chunks rather than standalone words. Section 6. The Finished Conversational House. Let's step into the real world and see how this builds into something amazing. think about filling out a form, sending a quick message, ordering food, describing your home, or talking about your daily routine. Every single one of these daily interactions relies perfectly on that exact small skeleton of A1 grammar tools we just outlined. It is the foundation of every real sentence you produce. I want to leave you with this really comforting metaphor. Think of grammar as the frame of a house. You don't look at the frame and admire it. You look at the finished house and feel comfortable inside it. Grammar works the exact same way. It is just the invisible strength supporting your communication. You learn the structure so your meaning stands clear and solid. So, I have to ask you, are you ready to pick up your simple tools and start building your own conversational house, room by room? The foundation is right there waiting for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy building.